All right.
Yay, thank you, DJ Justice. I feel like that's become the JI theme song, pretty
Anthem,
much.
that's right.
That's our anthem. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot of ground to cover today, but we are so excited. Welcome everybody to the Justice Initiative information session. We are so happy that you're all able to join us today, and we're looking forward to spending the next hour and a half telling you about this amazing program and community that we call the Justice Initiative. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Enumali Agata. I'm a 2017 Harvard Law School graduate who runs the initiative alongside Professor John Hanson, who's a professor at Harvard Law School and the head of the Systemic Justice Project, and Justin Hansford, a professor at Howard Law School and the director of the Thurgood Marshall Center for Civil Rights. You will hear more from them momentarily. Also, a quick shout out to all of our panelists who are incredible, who you will hear from later. I also wanted to give a special thanks to Lucy Litt and Lindsey Roseman-Valente, two members of the JI Steering Committee, who have been critical in helping us plan today's information session and in building JI into the incredible program it's become. You will also hear from them later. So just as a quick overview of today's session, I'm going to talk briefly about JI's mission and JI's origin. Professor Hanson will then discuss the problems with traditional legal education and the resulting challenges for justice-oriented law students and lawyers. After that, Professor Hansford will take you through the JI model and how we seek to address these problems and challenges. We'll then have two panels featuring students and lawyers that participated in last year's JI program. And then we'll discuss JI requirements for participation in this coming academic year. And then we will talk about next steps, and we will hopefully have time for questions. But if we don't worry, we will give you our contact information so that you can email us later with any questions that you were not able to ask during the session. So let's dive in. So what is currently displayed on our screen is the JI mission. So we are a community of social justice oriented lawyers, law students, law school faculty, organizers, and activists devoted to thinking creatively about the role lawyers can play in reimagining, dismantling, and remaking unjust systems, working to repair longstanding injustices, assisting law students hoping to pursue justice-oriented careers, and providing opportunities for further study, engagement, advising, organizing, and collaboration among its members. So one thing that you'll probably notice during this information session is you will hear us refer to JI interchangeably as a program and as a community. The Justice Initiative is definitely a program. We have regular meetings, a schedule, participation requirements, all of that good stuff. But I personally believe that the heart of JI is the community that we have built and hope to continue building. That is the lifeblood of who we are, and that engagement sparks the innovation, the dismantling and the reimagining that is discussed in our mission statement and that will be discussed in more detail during our panels. Next slide. So JI was born out of a moment of crisis or multiple crises. We were in the midst of a pandemic. George Floyd's murder had led to nationwide protests and a long overdue conversation about race in America, and the climate crisis was raging on. So while many of us felt despair, understandably, through this time, there was also a glimmer of something else. And that is what Professor Hanson likes to call the granite to clay moment. It was a rare moment when many in society, even those who typically are resistant to doing so, were openly and honestly questioning many of our institutions and structures and trying to figure out how we got here and what role those institutions and structures played in creating the damage that we were grappling with. And this questioning led to many for the first time to consider how these institutions and structures could be restructured, reimagined, or fully dismantled to undo some of this damage and create a more just and equitable society moving forward. And that's where JI comes in. We're all hyper aware of the role that lawyers play in shaping our society, in shaping our notions of justice and what's right and wrong. Lawyers in particular have a special role in this project of reimagining our world and the institutions and structures within it. This means that what law students are taught in law school is also critically important to this project. Through JI, we're bringing together justice-oriented law students and lawyers to do the work of revolutionizing legal education, changing the types of lawyers law schools produce, and in doing so, changing the society that we as lawyers help to construct. So that's just a little nutshell of our origin. Now I'm going to pass it over to Professor Hansen, who's going to discuss the problems with traditional legal education.
Thank you, Anjali, for that introduction. I don't know what you're doing calling me Professor Hansen all of a sudden. You've been out of the Justice Initiative too long. Like, we got to get back in it. None of that here. I have to follow Anjali, which isn't easy, and I only have a short amount of time to try to cover a sort of a big topic. So I'm going to try to set up kind of our overall philosophy, where those involved in the Justice Initiative assume, among other problems in the world, there are three in legal education, in the legal profession, and in law that are worth highlighting and that we're interacting with. The first big problem is that the legal system, while promising to promote justice and deliver justice, actually only delivers law. And most of that law is entrenching, reinforcing, and reproducing inequalities that have been with us a very long time. So put differently, there's kind of this bait and switch with law that they claim to be about justice, but actually, when you look, most of our injustices are very, very much connected to the law, and law seems to be producing injustice. This comment, this observation is now commonplace, but all you have to do is ask yourself the question, look at any major systemic problem we have and look at it with any care, you will see that law is part of the issue. And if it weren't, then why isn't law doing something? Like, law has got to be back there somewhere. And those of us who study law can see it quite clearly. In fact, as Bill Quigley puts it, justice is countercultural value in the legal profession. Purvi Shah, movement lawyer, explains that it's in part for that reason that the profession itself is devoted to other things, really not social change. Only 3% of America's 1.3 million lawyers work on issues of justice and poverty, she writes. And as others have observed, more or less, the largest portion of the legal profession is devoted to what might be called the opposite of justice, reinforcing existing structures in the status quo, which involves the exploitation of the weak by the strong. Now, that's the first big problem. The second big problem is that law students are nonetheless, they have the impression that law is a place that is delivering justice, and they often will come to law school with that very purpose in mind. A large number of students every year come hoping to do something about social change, about addressing the inequalities, about promoting justice. And within 3 years, they have found that for whatever set of reasons, they are now leaving for something else. Call it law. Call it that stuff that is not justice, or even in some cases, injustice. And that something about legal education prioritizes law over justice in the curriculum, but also in the lives of the people who go through the process. And this too has been observed by many. I won't go into much detail, but it is commonplace now to observe that there's lots of students moving through, hoping to advance something bigger, something more transcendent towards social ends and social justice, but who find again and again that somewhere in their legal career, usually somewhere in 1L, they begin to feel they're losing touch with the fundamental aspects that brought them to law school. That is, the goals of justice, fairness, and helping people. And inside the law school, notwithstanding the facade that may include the word justice, or the shield that might include the word justice, there is no evidence that justice is a preoccupation of the people running the institution. As Robin West puts it, one gleans no indication whatsoever that justice is even marginally relevant to the study of law. And there is then in legal education a kind of repeated emphasis that law is what you need to focus on, and you need to sort of put aside these other concerns, these more idealistic concerns that you might have brought with you to law school. The actual message delivered through most legal educational institutions, though not all, is that justice is kind of at the margin. It's to be done on the weekends when you've got the other real work, the real law work done. I think more powerfully, more compellingly, Dean Spade puts it this way: law students arrive with intentions to do certain kinds of social justice work, but they end up either doing horrifying pro-capitalist work at a private firm or some kind of public interest job that they don't like or don't believe in. So this is a real problem, because legal education not only frustrates the aspirations of our students, it actually takes from the world a large group of these justice-minded young people who want to devote their lives to advancing justice and turns them in another direction towards law. And so we lose them in their ability and their capacity to do other kinds of work that would be far more valuable. And then we have them ultimately working on the side of law. Now, there is then this third problem that is producing or helping to produce these trends, these currents, and that is that there are very powerful and wealthy institutions in our world that are committed to the maintenance of the tendencies I've just described. That they believe that the inequalities as they have existed and still exist, the advantage and privilege that some enjoy and the disadvantage that others must suffer, that is all something worth preserving because they are the beneficiaries of that. And they understand that to preserve it, they need to do it through law. They are consciously devoted to using law and the legal system and the legal profession to that end. Now, there are a variety of institutions that we could point to. Some of the most prominent include very large law firms that employ large quantities of each year's graduating class of lawyers and pay them a great deal of money, making the debt load that those students are burdened with more manageable, and also creating a kind of status of what jobs count and so forth. And the clients for those firms are interested in finding people to help them maintain their advantage, their competitive advantage in the marketplace, but also their competitive advantage in the public sphere, their ability to influence laws, lawmakers, and public institutions to their advantage. Law firms then are doing a lot of the hiring, and law schools are dependent upon that hiring. They are charging large tuition, asking students to become significantly indebted. And the only way out of that is through these kinds of jobs. And the law schools themselves, their own status in the hierarchy of legal education, their own institutional integrity depends upon them playing on this field and producing as many of those kinds of law students as they can. So they have a stake in the maintenance of this system. And then on the outside of it all, there are institutions that are actually quite specialized, devoted to maintaining this and justifying it. We've got the John M. Olin Foundation or the Federalist Society, et cetera, that have been devoted to this. And as a consequence of those institutional structures reinforcing the trends that have long existed, we live in a situation in which, as Ian Haney Lopez puts it, conservatives have been especially effective at pouring money into winning the battle of ideas in law schools. What we learn and the ideas we are transferring are ideas that favor certain groups over others. And similarly, as Amanda Hollis Brusky writes in her remarkable history of the Federalist Society, the effect of this has been to transform legal education, the legal profession, and law itself, including the institutions of law like the Supreme Court, such that there are now 40,000 members of the Federalist Society, including 4 Supreme Court justices, dozens of federal judges, and so on. As a consequence of this whole set of institutional forces, we can fairly look at the whole ecosystem of law and say, look, there is a movement. There is a very major, profound, influential movement that is highly advantaged in shaping what law is. And that movement is not one for justice. That's a movement for law in the promotion of the maintenance of the status quo. And that's what Kimberly Williams Crenshaw was writing in 2002 when she described that movement and its efficacy. So much more true today than it was even in 2002. Now, that's the larger ecosystem in which these same students are entering legal education, and they experience a triple challenge, or what Justin likes to call triple trouble. And that is, if you're justice oriented as a law student, you're really in trouble because you're juggling three major tasks. You've got to do what everyone else is doing. You've got to learn the law, and you got to be ready for your exams, and you got to show that you can do this stuff. That's hard enough. That's enough to keep most people busy and say, this is a really tough and rigorous education. On top of that, they have to learn justice. They have to learn how it is that the legal system in its operation is actually producing a lot of the inequalities and the injustices and social problems in our world. That's not being taught. They have to go out of their way to go find that information. And at the same time, they have to maintain some sort of emotional capacity to care. They have to be able to still have the kind of energy and concern that they came with when that is being depleted by their very work and by the abstract analysis that is conventional for legal education, where all the major problems are erased from our vision, and we're simply talking about legal categories and legal silos and the kind of logical application of them. This is a difficult challenge to learn both law and justice. And to ask what you would have to do to learn justice too, I turned to the great piece by William Quigley, Letter to a Law Student Interested in Social Justice, to identify just a quick inventory of the things he says such a student would need to learn. They would have to question the fairness and justice of our laws. So that is extra work as they're learning the laws. They have to push themselves to learn how the laws came into being. What's the history, the context that produced those laws? They need to look in that space for the unstated implications of race, class, and gender. These are things, again, that are not being highlighted. They've got to dig, and it's hard to see, especially when you're tired. They have to seek out the voices of the people whose voices are not heard in institutions, including many legal educational institutions. They have to look for the histories of social movements. They have to understand what is really moving change. If it's not law, what is? And what's my relationship to that? So they have to learn about social movements, the history of social justice lawyering, and contemporary examples of social justice lawyering, so they know it's available. It's something they can do. It's something they can aspire to. All of that is really important. All of that justice-oriented students have to do, but they have to do it alone. They have to do it one at a time, often with just maybe a couple of friends that they pick up in 1L without any institutional support. And so Bill is speaking to this when he talks about you have to get out of the currents and move counter to the crowd. You've got to do this on your own. And in doing that, it turns out you're setting yourself up for profound institutional gaslighting, which is its own source of depletion and difficulty that students face. Now, we're not even done, because if you actually care about this stuff and pay attention to it, now you want a job like everyone else, except the difference is the kind of jobs you're looking for are not going to come to you. You're not going to be able to just go with the current and find yourself with a job or do the normal things that law school offers many opportunities for to get yourself a job. You've got to go out of your way, go find a job, learn about the options, and then see how you can finance it, often through fellowships, etc. So you're carrying now, juggling three profoundly difficult challenges: law, justice, and job. And as a consequence of all of that, those students who want to practice social justice are, as Bill Quigley puts it, swimming upstream. While there are schools of fish, like lazy river style, making their way downstream, enjoying their law school, relatively speaking, and feeling like they're doing it right and being rewarded for what they're doing. And so he says, unless you're serious about your direction and the choices you make and the need for assistance, teamwork, and renewal, you will likely grow tired and start floating along and end up going downstream with the rest. And so we can begin to see then this first issue. How is it that so many people come to law school devoted to justice, and so many of them end up pursuing law. That is a problem that we're really interested in the Justice Initiative. And with that, I'll turn it over to Justin.
All right, thank you, John. So that's so inspiring and such a accurate description of the case of what we call triple trouble that our students are facing in their efforts to be part of the solution when it comes to these issues of social justice and trying to find a way to use the law as a part of that solution. At the Justice Initiative, our goal is to provide institutional support to be able to provide an institutional solution, if you will, to the triple trouble that people are facing in their efforts to become systemic lawyers or lawyers who are fighting for social justice. At Howard University School of Law, where I'm from, we talk about the lawyer as a social engineer. So how can we say that we are trying to respond to the triple trouble that young people are facing? Well, we have a triple strategy, which involves three elements, three pieces of the body, if you will: the head, the heart, and the hands. This is a metaphor. Some people may call it stodgy, but I think it's a very accurate metaphor for what we're trying to do. We're trying to engage the whole person in the different elements of a person's ability to engage in this response, and making it a holistic response, not just a intellectual response, or not just a worker response, or not just a response that builds on community, but a response that does all three. So to start the description, let's talk about what happens in your intellectual space. How do you engage a way to theoretically, intellectually reorient yourself away from a law-centered focus to this work, to a justice-centered focus to this work? We have programming that's designed to introduce students to ways to do this in the area of the law. Critical theories such as critical race theory are going to be engaged at the front of this process. You'll be able to think about your own personal theory of change. You'll be able to think about ways to be helpful, not just in solving individual cases that harm vulnerable individuals, but more so looking at ways to critically analyze systemic injustice, systemic racism, patriarchy, environmental injustice, finding ways to not only work in those fields, but understand what is happening through readings, through deeper discussions, through intellectual engagement, and to learn how to be the type of systemic lawyer that you want to be and that you wanted to be when you began law school. So into that effort, you see we have a few curricular elements that we are going to engage, especially when it comes to ways for you to understand how the legal education that you are offered oftentimes comes up short in the very necessary project of teaching you how to fight for not just legal reform, but systemic justice reform. That introduction will include critical race theory, other types of critical theories, law and economics, understanding constitutional theory, all of the different types of intellectual tools that systemic lawyers use in order to make a difference. Also, moving from the head down to the hands, we do get our hands dirty. We do engage in actual work. We do work alongside organizers, practicing lawyers, others who are legal workers in an effort to make sure that we do more than just talk the talk, but also we walk the walk. Many of you may be familiar with the work of Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. For us, you can't have action without reflection. You can't have reflection without action, the head without the heart, and the hands. And this is the praxis that we talk about here. So what is our praxis? What is the work that comes out of our intellectual engagements here and our relationships with our community? One of the things we do every year is engage in campaign work. This year, our Praxis project is the CRT is me campaign, hashtag CRT is me. That campaign is going to help with the response to the attack on critical race theory, which I'm sure you're already familiar with because it's been on every channel and every station around the country. That national pressure to stifle speech, to stifle access to these critical ideas that are necessary for us to be able to accomplish the goal of racial justice, that response is so critical to our work and arises so organically from the intellectual engagement that we will begin with as soon as the semester starts, that it becomes almost like a clinical project. It's almost like a clinic that we're working with on this issue, not only working alone, but also in coordination with other organizations and other coalitions engaged in the same struggle. In addition to that, there are other opportunities, fellowships, pro bono opportunities, job opportunities, independent clinical opportunities. So we make sure that there are many opportunities for people to work and get their hands dirty. In addition to that, one thing I'll mention is also our committee work. We also are looking for folks to help us build this institution. Being only in its second year, the first year really transitioning from a project, an experiment to an institution that's going to be sustainable. We need your help on that. And finally, the heart aspect of our work, the connection, the community, the solidarity. That is, as Inimale said earlier, that is at the heart of what we're doing in this Justice Initiative experiment, which has now become something that is entering its second year. We are building community with each other. We are caring for each other. We are supporting each other. We are mentoring each other. We have attorneys at all levels of experience who reach back and connect with students. We have law students who are 3Ls who reach back and connect with the 1Ls. We have support that we offer when, as we can predict, when the unexpected thing happens. Last year, as you can imagine, between the election, between protests, there's so many things that took place. We were there for each other in those moments. And that's one of the things I am most proud of as someone who is a part of this community 2020, 2021, the fact that we were there for each other, we provided space for each other, and we provided solidarity for each other. Even if we were in cities or states, communities or law schools that did not necessarily share our sensibilities when it came to being desperate for justice, we found community with each other. And that was so important and so vital for our ability to endure all of the things that happened over the past year. But that is key to our work. So the head, the hands, and the heart all taking place at the same time here at the Justice Initiative. And these types of projects help us to build our resilience. They are sustainable. We worked with each other. We'll hear more about this, I believe, on our panel. Learning how to cope with fatigue, learning how to cope with trauma, learning lessons on the importance of self-care. All of this was something that we were able to bring to the table. Finally, we were very successful in our career support network that we provided. I believe that every student who wanted a mentor in their particular field was able to obtain one through the wonderful volunteer work of our academic counselors. And that's something that we are going to continue this year as well. And so if you put it all together, going back into this idea of how to find the work that you love, resumes, cover letters, interviewing skills, picking a job, financing the law school education, all these different types of career advising opportunities are available. So if you think back to the triple trouble that we discussed earlier, trouble with learning the law, trouble with learning justice, trouble with learning how to find a job, we are providing institutional support to help solve all three of those problems. We're very proud and happy to do so.
Fantastic. Thank you, Justin. That was excellent. We are going to move on to our first panel. Our first panel will feature Joe Washington, Michael Bernardini, Iltaf Bala, Billy Wilkerson, and Lucy Litt. Unfortunately, Zoe has an orientation. She won't be able to join us, but we are very excited to have our incredible JI members, like people who were really devoted to JI and helped build this incredible community that we're so proud of, here today to talk about their experience as part of JI. So Justin, do you have the first question?
And Molly, I was actually going to ask if you wanted to start off the questions here.
Okay, so I will start.
Okay.
And this is not a situation where everybody has to respond to every single question. So just feel free to jump in when you feel you have something to contribute. So the first question, a crucial part of JI are the Saturday sessions, during which we discuss ideas. We usually have speakers or panelists. We're introduced to concepts. We have breakout rooms. It's a great opportunity for us to learn about different concepts, but also kind of unpack what is missing in traditional legal education and provide it in the Saturday session space. So a question to the panelists: how did the JI Saturday sessions shape your understanding of law school and or critical race theory? People should feel free to just jump in.
Since nobody else jumped in.
And please introduce yourself when you provide a response.
Sure. I am Billy Wilkerson. I am the managing director at the Thurgood Marshall Civil Rights Center. I'm a 2020 graduate of law school, Howard University School of Law. And at the time that I joined JI, I was actually a graduate already. And so I'm a little bit jelly at the fact that this exists for incoming 1Ls and 2Ls, and like in the crux of it, to be able to address what we're referring to as triple trouble and to be able to have that triple response and kind of incorporate that and have a community that actually is able to implement. Like I just, what the thing that struck me the most, and I'll make my comment a little bit shorter, is the authenticity in the community. There's such a specialness about us being able to be with each other that it gave me chills almost every weekend. It was just like, I just wanted to keep being a part of it because it was so real, and that's so important. So that's my tiny little comment.
Thank you, Billy. It's fantastic. Anybody else?
Joey, it looks like you're on mute. There we go.
I'm going to say good evening, everyone, because it's 9:30 where I'm at. And so Joe Washington, I'm currently living abroad between Italy and the Netherlands. I moved here after spending 10 years working for the UN in Sudan and South Sudan. And last year was very special for me to connect with the Justice Initiative and the Saturday sessions, because even though the sessions from my time zone would last until midnight, 12:30, I never felt tired. I was always full of energy, energetic, learning something new, connecting with the community was, it was like, okay, a shot in the arm. I'm ready now to go back out there because as I had mentioned in an email to Justin and others, I'm encountering people in Europe asking me about, say, critical race theory and how is it true? It's just about making white people feel bad. It's like, what? And so to understand the level of the understanding and the debate and just so reactionary. And so JI Saturday sessions were very instrumental in having an opportunity to learn about what's happening and to come up with intelligent responses. So I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much, Joe.
All right. Does anyone else want to answer this one? One more person?
Go. I can
Sure.
go.
Yeah.
Sorry about my dog. So I think there's a lot I could say, but I think some of the ways that it sort of shaped my law school experience, my understanding of law school, I knew that there were things that were missing that I think, like what's been said already, and sort of my 1L classes were like pretty neutralized, and my professors, even if they wanted to tackle some of these things, I think often didn't have the tools, and without knowing that, it can just be frustrating. And so I think it really helped me to learn about sort of legal theory and the things that I was missing in my classes, but also to learn from professors who specialize in this. So people who could talk about like property from the perspective of these like social justice issues, or contracts from the perspective of someone who looks at like contracts and urban farming in DC. So there are these really amazing opportunities to actually sort of rethink what I was learning as a 1L. I started this as a 2L, so I'm a 3L right now. And I think also it just helped me stay really connected to like real issues and real work. So like I worked in public interest sort of jobs before law school, but I felt very disconnected from all of that as my legal education sort of continued. And so I think having the opportunity to like really stay connected to people who are doing all of this work and stay on top of it and sort of like read what's really happening and learn from my peers was amazing, and really helped me sort of think differently about law school.
All right. Thank you, Lucy. I'm so it makes me feel so wonderful to know about these positive impacts that you experienced. And for a second question, also we'll open this up to anyone who would like to respond. How did JI impact your opportunities and expectations for your career in terms of your career pathways?
I can take this one. Michael Bernardini, I'm a 3L last semester at Rutgers Camden in New Jersey. So I came to law school only for social justice, expecting it to not be the way it was, but whatever, it happened. I quickly found out, everyone was telling me, you can be a progressive prosecutor or you can be a public defender. And like those choices, neither one appealed to me. I was ready to like just go, I don't know, write books. I don't know what I was going to do. I don't care, go teach. I'm not going to be a part of that system. So that was never an option. But through Justice Initiative, I linked up with BALT, which is in the circle of movement lawyering organizations out of Baltimore. And like now there's an actual path. Like if you want to do social justice, there's not just two routes, public defender or so-called progressive prosecutor. And I don't know what form that's going to take. I'm applying for a fellowship now. I've been with them for over a year, but if not, I'll start my own organization if I have to. Like I'm not going to become part of the system. And I didn't know that existed. Like I didn't know about movement lawyering. I never heard the term. I don't know any lawyers. That's not a world for me. So like all these terms are new for me, everything. And then I was like, oh, movement lawyering. Yeah, that sounds like some revolutionary work I can get involved in. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone else want to respond to this one?
I'll go ahead and jump in just because part of what Michael said really resonated with me. So what's good, John Iltoff. I am a 2L at Case Western Reserve University School of Law. And I joined last year as a 1L. And I also, again, like didn't know lawyers like that. I didn't know about the law. It was basically, again, public defender or prosecutor or transactional contract work for like insert evil oil company here, right? So I was like, all right, it's not working, right? Like, these are my only options. I don't know about this law school thing. It's not really fitting. And through the Justice Initiative, I met so many people doing so many different kinds of public interest work, and things where I really didn't think about it. I mean, public interest is usually marketed as, again, like public defender or some other random nonprofit, right? But through JI, I met who was going to be like my supervisor for the summer, and I got to work on like First Amendment issues and like tech and like the intersection of like internet and cyber law, and the First Amendment as it relates to marginalized people, and meeting other people who do that work. Like, I didn't know that was a thing that existed. I didn't, like, pre-law school coming into that, there's no way I would have known that these are things that people were doing or projects people were working on. It all just seemed really abstract. And I think the Justice Initiative was really good for me to actually have concrete examples of what doing social justice work actually looks like in so many different fields. So I still don't exactly know what I want to do, but I'm the good type of confused now, where it's just like, there's so many options and I don't know which thing I want to do, instead of there are no options. And now I'm worried that I wasted a lot of loan money trying to go to law school. So that.
Thank you, Iltaf. I love that. That's where we're trying to get all of you, the good kind of confused. I love that. Anybody else want to answer this question? If not, I think we might be able to close this and move on to the second panel, if that works for everyone. The second panel will be moderated by the fantastic Lucy Litt. Thank you so much, Lucy. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Annie-Marie. Sorry again about my talk. So I think we have these amazing panelists, Lindsey, Rachel, TT, Jordan, Tiffany. And one of the questions we have for you is just in what ways you felt supported, sort of reinforced by the Justice Initiative community in your time as a member.
Okay, I can answer this one because I felt so supported by the Justice Initiative, like the whole time. It made such a huge difference for me. So in my 1L year, which was the year before the Justice Initiative, I failed criminal law. I literally got a straight F in that class, and I hated law school. I felt like I was battling fascists every day, and there was only one other Black person in my entire section of like 90 people. So when the Justice Initiative started, and I got to talk to other people who cared about equality and like didn't laugh at the social justice issues that were raised, and like how the law was impacting people who looked like me, it was so reaffirming, and I just felt seen. On top of that, we were doing a lot of like work trying to get equity demands. The school was pretty much gaslighting us, and just having when like January 6th happened, the Justice Initiative hosted a panel, and that was the only place that I was like safe to talk about what was going on, and how just like the night before that was actually when we found out that Georgia won the Senate, or we won the Senate because they won in Georgia. And to go from like that high to like this is happening was just, I mean, I had no way to process it, and I don't know how I would have processed it without the session that we had at JI, and just having like a safe space and being able to build a community, because there's people who I got to talk to. Like I connected with Billy randomly. We were in a breakout section, and I was like, hi, will you be my friend and help me? And she like, we talked, like it was incredible. And there was another person, Mariana, and she went to Pepperdine. So I go to Loyola, I'm a 3L now. And getting to meet someone else like in the same kind of area who was also going through stuff at their own school and not feeling supported, and just having that person that you like are able to connect with even during quarantine. We just went on hikes. Like it was, I can't say, like, I can't speak highly enough about this experience. It has refilled me. And every time we'd have these like 3-hour sessions, I never wanted to get off. I would just be like sitting there, like soaking in every minute, like, yeah. So the Justice Initiative is fantastic.
Thanks, Rachel. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I can say I echo Rachel's sentiments. Actually, this definitely became kind of the second home, as people that I knew that were not just like-minded, but that would keep it real. I know that Justin and I have had multiple conversations over the last year, and I was looking to start a critical race journal at my school, and one of the first people I thought to reach out to ask for advice, for help, for pointing me in the right direction was Justin, right? Like, speaking members of his community about that, like Michael would probably know this about, like, the journal at Rutgers. And so, like, meeting people that were like-minded but also doing the work that could inspire me, that could help inform what I was doing, but also could just be there when, like, it seemed like nobody else was there for you. And you just, like, send a message in the Slack channel and just be like, hey, anybody have any advice, anybody have any resources, like, what's going on? And so it's kind of, I mean, you see it, right? Like, we're all here, we're all coming back. And this is why, is because we've built that community, like, and I talked about in the beginning of this, and John talked about, like, it's building that community that's helped me get through this last year.
Thanks so much, Jordan. So because we haven't heard from Tiffany and Lindsey yet, I wonder if, Lindsey, if you could talk a little bit about your experience working on CRT with Justice Initiative community, and then Tiffany, if you could talk a little bit about all of your hard work with sort of setting up mentoring and career advising, that'd be amazing. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi, everybody. My name is Lindsey. I'm a recent graduate. Basically, I was in law school as an evening student. I worked full-time during the day. So I had limited to no ability to seek out opportunities, to get involved with social justice-oriented groups, to seek out people like me at my school, which is already not known for being social justice focused to begin with. But through the Justice Initiative, we had this call to action from the one and only Kimberly Crenshaw to think about how we at Justice Initiative could help combat this disingenuous anti-CRT movement, which her organization, the African American Policy Forum, was already working on through their Truth Be Told campaign. That was really life-changing for me being in law school, like feeling very isolated. I know that this is kind of a theme that you're hearing from a lot of us, because we all have just felt so siloed at law school, which we know is not a unique experience. So getting to do this work, getting to work on the CRT is Me campaign, it connected me with a core group of people who are dedicated to that work specifically, work alongside the AAPF. Several of us that are here talking on this panel, on both these panels today, we actually just sat on a panel last month for AAPF's CRT Summer School to share the work that we've been doing with CRT is Me, and then also to share how that's impacted us as law students and future lawyers. If you had told me in my 2L year, when I first finally came across Kimberly Crenshaw's writing, that I would not only get to see her speak at one of our JI sessions, but then would also get to work with her organization, and then be asked to sit on a panel for her organization, I would have bet you my JD that would never happen. That was how far removed all of that felt. The barriers were just so high, it seemed insurmountable. Like, that seemed like a pipe dream, like something that I could never possibly have access to. And that's just one example. But what, the Justice Initiative has brought to my life is, again, like a community of people that are just my people. It's a community of people that I felt either didn't exist before or that didn't exist for me. Like I just didn't understand how to find it. I didn't know where to look for it. And we say this all the time, and Jordan and Rachel, and I feel like most of the people here have said this, but these sessions are where I have felt the most at home. Not just with starting law school, but just generally, like to Rachel's point about, not being laughed at when talking about social justice issues. It's so demoralizing to be having conversations about people's worth and people's lives and the way that laws impact them, to basically be scoffed at by colleagues, by classmates, by professors. So Justice Initiative is really where I get to feel the most at home. The CRT is Me sessions were areas where we could collaborate with everybody who was dedicated to this work and not just think of ideas, but actually start creating things that will have an impact moving forward so that we can actually combat some of this. Yeah, this is the community where we get to be ourselves and collaborate and do the work that we set out to do when we applied to law school to begin with.
And I'm Tiffany Smith. I am a social justice attorney and can do nothing else. And I echo absolutely everything that everyone has said here. It's really been something I've looked forward to. I've been missing when we haven't met on Saturdays. And so I'm so glad we are doing this again, and that we're going to have some of the same people coming back and some new people, and it's just going to be a terrific thing. I coordinate the career assistance part of the program. And so we're going to offer optional opportunities for law students to gain tips on how to pursue careers in social justice and interact with justice warriors doing this work to reduce barriers and increase access to justice. We have lots of ideas for sessions that we might offer throughout the year. We'll set up panels of those doing different types of work to give you a variety of what people are doing: civil rights, environmental, immigration, education, healthcare, lobbying, etc. And a variety of settings. So government, nonprofit, prosecution and defense, but also others, corporate, international, things like that. And we also hope to do some identity panels. So first generation lawyers, women, BIPOC, LGBTQAI+. In addition to our career panels, we offer a mentorship program where law students can connect with lawyers for one-on-one guidance, coaching, and encouragement. The expectation is that the mentors will meet with the mentees throughout the school year, share their wisdom and professional life lessons that aren't typically taught in law school. So we are hoping to give everybody who participates in the Justice Initiative a wide range of options instead of just the two you hear about, and then also help you figure out how to set your pathway to get there and what it takes. So thank you.
Okay, great. So were there particular speakers during JI sessions that you found especially influential? And if so, why? Anyone who wants to take it.
I mean, guys, we had Cornell West come. I cried. I was really fangirling hard. And I don't know if you guys know Saru, but just she would have me crying and laughing within the same 30-second span, and motivating me to practice self-care when I feel like the world is exploding. Just there were coming and having people who are doing things that are actually addressing a lot of the problems we heard about, whether that would be when K-Sue came and talked about address the fact that we don't talk about the ways that the property system disenfranchises people, and just knowing okay, I'm not going insane, first in time, that wasn't really a thing. And just not being, just all of the people who'd already made it talking about how they were gaslit and they felt a lot of the same things we did, or I did, and the people I talked to did, was so reaffirming. And it just literally helps you keep going. and it also just relieves a lot of the pressure. Bianca Tylek also came, and she talked about how she didn't do OCI, and her saying that, I was like, oh, thank God. Like I always thought that was a waste of time. I didn't want to do it anyway. She didn't do it. She ended up okay. So that means I'm not gonna, like, I don't have to go waste my time doing that either. And it was the best. And just also the opportunities that, you know, you don't have to be doing something in the summer that is the traditional law school path, either like, you know, doing a clerkship where you're not being paid, or you know, summering at some big law firm, like where you're selling your soul in exchange for a couple dollars, but a lot of dollars and probably some nice shoes. But like, this summer was a 13th Amendment legislative researcher and worked on addressing badges and incidents of slavery. And like, it's cool to see how all of these things kind of tied into each other, but also how JI brings people into like guests in, and they just tell you that it's okay and what they did. And it really encourages you to find your niche and the place that you fit in. And they kind of tell you how they did it. And it just gives you permission to step outside of the usual like law school square that we feel so pushed into.
I love that. Thank you so much, Rachel.
That's great.
Anyone else before we kick it over to John to introduce this amazing video he's put together? No? Okay, we're gonna.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I can't do a whole lot to follow that because Rachel I think covered it. I mean, we have amazing speakers come in. Like talking about the property thing. I remember Cheryl Harris coming in and talking about whiteness is property, and like I always mess up the last name, Katansis, who talked about crime and policing, like, and some of those things are like, especially while we were doing that work in DC, especially like I'm in DC, and like, talking about what was going on with them funding police and then taking money away and then putting money back into police, like all that stuff happening. So like we have just like the speakers are amazing, but I think some of the biggest and most impactful parts of it for me was talking to my fellow Justice Initiative members, right? Like people who were here, who were doing the work, who were having the struggles, who were like taking the stuff that we were learning and then like applying it and then seeing results or like having more questions. Like that to me is like where the real magic happens, like outside of like the amazing people that come in. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jordan. So I'm going to kick it over to John, who is well known within our community for his videos, his highlight reels that he would put together and we would always show during the session. So you all get a little bit of a taste, a little preview of one of these videos. So John.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. This video is really an echo of so much of what we've heard from this wonderful group of panelists, all of whom really spoke my feelings for me about this whole experience. And I can tell you if the range of experience from lawyers who've been doing it a long time to new and fresh lawyers to 1Ls to 3Ls or recent grads, the law professors of every age, if it means that much to them, it does tell me that we're doing something special. And I think what I like about the video is it captures some of the feeling of the experience itself, which is not like a webinar. We're all visible. So we're, everyone is there. And there's enough time to really sink in and sort of engage some topics. So you'll get a few snapshots of that.
Fox News isn't going away. The Federalist Society isn't going away. White supremacy, the biggest threat in this country, is not going away. And we as law students especially, were uniquely qualified to execute on this, right? Especially in our schools, like Kimberly Crenshaw was telling us.
Judges don't see themselves as agents of social change. They see themselves very much as agents of social stability. And what that means is preserving a distribution of wealth and distribution of various privileges.
I hate working within a system that has justified the idea that the last 78 or 79 federal judges can be white, and then all those people can go and put black men and brown men in jail pretending like it's fair.
What does it mean in some respects to be a lawyer using that system? Because by using it, you are legitimating it in a certain sense.
We do not ask for incarceration under any circumstance.
We want to shut down the industry and shift the economy away from having to cage people or control people in our society.
As lawyers, we are supposed to be the people responsible for bringing more justice into the world. But we can't do that unless we understand how to do that in a way that is supportive, enriching, and contributing to movements, as opposed to taking power away from them, or not even being aware that power is involved at the crucial moment.
But there's also this part of my identity that is not tied to necessarily being a lawyer, but tied to being someone who sees themselves as an activist and who believes in community healing. And that doesn't always mean in court. That means working with people in the community.
So I think we have to look at both the substance of a reform and how it came about. Is it the result of a movement building power and a small step in something bigger? Or is it the result of the system imposing something that in an effort to try to erase and prevent a lot of further organizing?
The people closest to the harm need to make the decisions about the violence that's being visited upon them. And then the rest of us need to get around and circle and protect it and allow that organizing and movement to build and work.
And it is continuously a practice of community and of sharpening what is needed with our folks, whether that's our client organizations, whether that's other movement lawyers and academics that we're in relationship with. But it's a vision practice that all of us are necessary for and that any one of us can do.
There's a lot of knowledge and there's a lot of power in community if we connect to that community.
For me, it's about collectivity, it's about community, and it's about working together and working collectively. We strategize. One of the things that people of color know is we have a meeting before the meeting. This is how social movement gets done, is we have a meeting before a meeting. So you got to be humble. You got to reach out to your people. You can't carry it on your own. And so that's what I would say. We are all very small and the universe is very big, but together we're powerful.
If I were a law student now, I would really try to figure out how to remove what appears to be a growing gag on our ability to name our experiences and to mobilize history, resources, historical promises, and existing justice talk in order for these ideas to mobilize material change.
So there's no doubt that lawyers have a crucial role to play, a fundamental role to play. But I think we need to begin with just a conception of the kind of persons we plan to be. Because you can't be a freedom fighter. You can't be a love warrior. You can't be a wounded healer or a scarred provider or a joy spreader. If you don't find joy in the struggle, you're not going to be here for too long. It's a fad and a fashion. Go on and do your posing and posturing and go on back to the mainstream and make your money. No, we're talking about long distance runners. We talking about marathoners in a quest for truth, and the condition of truth is always to allow suffering to speak. The very anthem of my people, of Black people, of great people, is to lift every voice, not lift every echo.
Human beings are the end of our advocacy. If our advocacy doesn't make their lives better, it's not worth one peppercorn.
In my tradition of the Black freedom struggle, the best of our tradition has always understood that any justice that's only justice soon degenerates into something less than justice. You got to have something deeper than justice. Harriet Tubman didn't go back 19 times just for justice. She went back because she loved Black people. She went back because she cared for Black people. She went back because she had a concern for Black people. That deep care, that deep concern, Sister Sora was talking about, that's what drives justice. So yes, we are a justice initiative. Yes, we're concerned with social justice, but we are human beings who are willing to love the people, to empty ourselves, to serve others and sacrifice ourselves, and then attempt to promote a justice in the meantime because we are so intent on staying on the love train.
Less about law and cases or statutes or regulatory guidance or courts and judges. And it's always going to be about dreaming, being, becoming, trying to engender the possibilities of what we in Lat Crit call el mundo bueno for those of us in this room.
And critical race theory is saying what? Y'all haven't seen Black people in all of their humanity and their beauty. You haven't seen women in all of their humanity and beauty. You haven't seen institutions and structures and how they confine. You haven't seen indigenous peoples. You haven't seen what's going on right now in Haiti. You haven't seen the precious brothers and sisters in Uganda or in Argentina. You haven't seen the poor workers in Tel Aviv or the precious Palestinians on the West Bank open up and try to see something. Your framework's too narrow. You're moving back and forth. You're not going to get locked into one school of thought and one lens. You got to be moving back and forth, trying to see. Then you got to feel deeply. You have to have a concern for folk. And then you got to act courageously. That's what a justice initiative.
I would urge us to embrace possibility. I would urge us to embrace beyond the fear and to not be afraid of what comes next. Don't think about what we would lose, but what we would gain.
Don't ever allow your foes to define the scope of your spirit or to steal your joy in your struggle for something bigger than you. Think about your grandmama's smile and the sparkle in the eyes of your daddy. Think about your own point of reference. The white normative gaze ain't the point of reference ever.
The Justice Initiative is not just an intellectual exercise. It's not just something we do for a few hours every other weekend. The work we're doing here is crucial. We're seeing the need for it everywhere and every single day. And we will continue to see the need for it under a Biden administration.
There is an infinite sea of work that needs to be done in so many ways to impact underserved communities throughout the entire country. And we need you guys' help as much as possible.
We need smart people thinking about them and committed people and energized people and real progressives and radicals to push.
We need people everywhere. We just do. We need people that think like you all do and across the board.
You know, they always talk about MLK saying the arc of the universe bends toward justice. I don't think it does bend passively. I think we wrench it toward justice. And I think we put our hands on it and move it toward justice.
It took a lot of people pursuing a lot of different interests to build this thing. It's going to take as many to undo it, okay? So it has to happen in every single way, at every single level. So a lot of the opportunities we see right now, as you all already know, you're all here, have been brought about by movements. And so that organizing piece is critical.
And he's told me about how your community is established, and it's very, very powerful to hear that, because actually the genesis of critical race theory itself comes out of a similar kind of community and dedication and commitment to thinking about radical transformation. We can, in fact, I think collectively do more.
It's going to take all of us.
That was fantastic, John. I'm going to say it. That had me in my feels. I feel like everyone was tearing up a little bit. That was fantastic.
It takes us back to the highlights of what was a difficult year. And
absolutely.
A lot of what for us was sustenance.
So we've shown you all the incredible things. We've shown you why you need to be a part of this community. And now we're going to talk about what you need to do to be a part of this community. Because we need your participation. We need people's commitment. The only way we were able to build this incredible group that you see in front of you is that everybody came and was fully committed and engaged. And that is what we want from everybody who joins our JI community this academic year. So we basically have two classes of participants. We have lawyers, practitioners who are our POGs, partners of the Justice Initiative. And then we have the law students. So with regard to the partners, we understand that they're working attorneys. They're obviously incredibly busy. We, for them, require that they make a good faith effort to attend the Saturday sessions, realizing that sometimes that might just not be possible, but we do ask for a good faith effort. For students, we would like you guys to attend all sessions if possible. We have about 10 3-hour Saturday programming sessions, which we've talked about earlier. Like everybody said, it's like a place where we get to connect, we get to discuss, we get to learn, and we also get to be rejuvenated. So I don't think it's a chore. I think everybody who attends always loved it and never wanted to leave. But we would hope that if you want to be a part of the Justice Initiative, that you can commit to attending all of these sessions. So thus far, this is what we have. This is not a schedule set in stone, but this is what our programming sessions, we envision them looking like. The first session would be about legal education. The second would be about the attack on critical race theory. Our third session would be legal theory. Then we would have sessions that would focus on the 1L curriculum and the 2L, 3L curriculum. Our sixth session would be about the different campaigns and collaborations, CRT is me being one of them. Then we would have 2 sessions on systemic lawyering, which I think were 2 of my favorite sessions that we had this past year. We would have a session on life as a systemic lawyer, which was fantastic, an opportunity to actually talk about what it is like to do the work as a lawyer and how to take care of yourself and your humanity in that process. And then our final session, we will have a looking back kind of reflection section and a looking forward where we discuss the future of JI. So that is what we have so far. Here are the tentative key dates. So September 30th, the end of this month, is our application deadline. We will circulate the link to the application at some point during the session, so don't worry. October 2nd, from 3 to 6, will be our first Saturday session. It'll be amazing. They always are. We will also have an optional career session, which will happen on October 9th. That will be led by Tiffany and Alexa, who are our 2 kind of career mentoring gurus. They're absolutely amazing. And last year they did a career session that was just out of this world phenomenal. So trust me, you will want to be there. March 26th is what we have as our final session right now. But as we said, the dates and everything are still kind of in flux. We're still working out details. So a finalized schedule with dates and subject matter for each session will eventually be announced. So I'm pumped. I hope all of you guys are pumped too. I am going to turn it over to Lucy now, who's going to talk about next steps if you want to be a part of this community, and you know you do.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, so I just put in the chat what you can also see it on the slide, what the links are to get to the applications. We have one application for students who we're calling Justice Initiative Fellows this year, and then a link for anyone who's a lawyer, law professor, practitioner in some form, who's a Justice Initiative partner this year. So you can apply to using the link that matches what you are, and then if you're not sure which one you fall into, feel free to contact us as well. And then our email address is 2020justiceinitiative@gmail.com. It's a great question, Rachel. Rachel just asked if people who've done it before need to reapply. I'm not sure the answer to that yet, but we can get back to you if you participated last year. But if you're new to JI and you want to participate, please just fill out the application. It's just to help us get a sense of sort of who you are and what you're interested in, and what brings you to the Justice Initiative. So we will be looking at those on a rolling basis, and we will get back to you as we're going through applications. But feel free to reach out with any questions.
Amazing. Well, so we have about 10 minutes left. I think that we should maybe open it up if anybody has any questions about JI or the application process, anything like that. I believe there is a raise hand feature and a Q&A feature.
Can I jump in with a couple of thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely.
One is the links that Lucy provided are indeed the right links for you. And we're going to add those to kind of the landing page that was the bit.ly link, so that anyone can get those. We are hoping to get any of you who are here and learning about us for the first time, or if you're coming back and excited to return, that you'll help us get the word out, because we really only had 2 days to get the word out about this. And while about 120 people signed up on our Zoom registration, we expect that there are hundreds more who would be interested, and just would encourage you to help us get this out through whatever means you have available. The other thing I want to emphasize is that what Inimali summarized was the Saturday sessions, which are the kind of required element for our student fellows, our Justice Initiative fellows, where we imagine 8 to 10 that you would attend. And the rest of the programming is really built to make it so great that you want to come. So the extra sessions where we're dealing with what's happening in the world, and we're kind of sharing out kind of how we're feeling, or we bring in some speakers to help help us process those issues. Those people are totally voluntary. They may be on a Wednesday night and or whatever, and people come as they can, and they are often great highlights. Similarly with the career and advising, some of you don't need that. Some of you are from institutions that are providing a great deal of that. Through Tiffany and Alexa Shabakoff, and also both the public interest offices at Howard University Law School and Harvard Law School are both engaged in helping us bring resources, expertise, and so forth. And all of that is there for you should you want it. Similarly, there's a set of possible sort of organic things that can come up. Student chapters, a number of students are working on creating student chapters at their law schools. That's happening. The CRT is Me thing is happening. Students are getting involved in that as they like, but usually feel so motivated to do something. Many of them do get involved. Those are not requirements. Those are things that we're hoping you'll take up. And then there's reading groups or organizing across campuses, or a whole set of opportunities that we want you to be thinking sort of creatively about. What else can we do with the Justice Initiative in this network to build power among law students, justice-oriented law students, lawyers, law professors, etc. So that's my last bit. I'll stop and would love to hear what questions you all have.
I will say, just to emphasize, please do help us get the word out about JI. It's an amazing thing. We're really, really proud of this community, and we really, really want to build it. So please get the word out if you can. I think somebody mentioned in the chat, we also have social media images that we can send for people to circulate if you would like those. So that would be great. Also, to echo John's point, we do have a lot of like optional elements in this program, but some of our optional elements, we have a lot of programming that is responsive to whatever is happening at the moment. I remember after the election, we ended up having kind of an impromptu session where people could just come and have a safe space to talk, to feel, to listen. We had something similar after the attack on the Capitol. And to me, those were some of the best sessions we had, because it was just in a time when there wasn't a lot of spaces where you felt safe. This was a place that we were able to create together, where we could all come and in a moment of crisis kind of find some semblance of peace, or at least understanding. So just wanted to put a plug in for those optional sessions as well.
And one thing I was going to add, don't forget, we are planning new sessions. So people who were members of the Justice Initiative in the previous year, don't be scared away with the idea that we're going to be repeating sessions with the same speakers and the same topics. So we're going to have new speakers, new topics, new engaging issues that are very current. So keep that in mind. And I am certainly available, just like all of us will be, to help promote the Justice Initiative over the course of the next 2 weeks on social media. In addition, perhaps in your law school networks, I know you young people have group chats and TikToks and all sorts of great things that you use to get the word out on things. So all of those are options.
Just to supplement that, we also will be repeating some speakers and some topics, unless you all get tired of hearing from Kim Crenshaw or Cornell West. Once that happens, you let us know. We won't invite them back. Please be in touch with us with any questions. I'm going to hang on for a few minutes to check in with old friends and maybe let other people kind of join, and so we can see them in the next couple of minutes if you're still around. All the panelists, thank you so much. It's so great to see you and hear from you. Joe, I hope we didn't keep you up too late.
Thank you all for coming. And yeah, there'll be another year of the sounds of DJ Justice.
We're Manhattan, baby girl, what's happening? You and your ass invited, so gonna get to clapping. Go pop a phone, pop a phone.
All right, guys, thank you. This was great. Looking forward to another great year.
Just in Miami, wake up with no jammies. Lobster tail for dinner. Julio served that scampi. You got it if you want it, got it if you